The stifled sobs of Zara Reynolds echoed through the empty cabin as she clutched the letter that had sealed her fate. Wyoming Territory, 1878, a place where a woman's worth was measured by the children she bore. And after 5 years of marriage, Zara's empty cradle had become her cross to bear. "You bring nothing but disappointment to this family," her mother-in-law had spat before the entire town of Cottonwood Springs. "No grandchildren, no legacy, you are no longer welcome in our home." The words still stung as Zara folded the letter from her husband Thomas, who had chosen his family's wishes over their marriage vows. He wasn't coming back. The divorce papers would arrive with the next supply wagon. At 30 years old, she was cast aside like damaged goods, her name tarnished with whispers of barrenness that followed her through town like a shadow. With trembling hands, Zara wiped away her tears and stood tall. There was no place for her in Cottonwood Springs anymore. The Reynolds family owned half the businesses in town, and their influence had already cost her the seamstress position she had held for years. No one wanted to cross the wealthiest cattle family in the territory by offering her work. Zara packed her meager belongings, her mother's silver hairbrush, a few dresses, her sewing kit, and the small pouch of money she had secretly saved over the years. It wasn't much, but it would have to be enough to start anew. As dawn broke, she secured her trunk to the small wagon she had purchased with the last of her savings and urged her old mare forward. The town was still sleeping as she passed through, with only the baker watching her departure with sympathetic eyes. He slipped her a warm loaf of bread, a small kindness she wouldn't forget. "Where will you go, Mrs. Reynolds?" he asked softly. "West," she replied, her voice stronger than she felt, "and it's just Miss Zara now." West she traveled across the rugged terrain of the Wyoming Territory. Days turned into a week as she followed crude maps and advice from fellow travelers. The loneliness was crushing, but the alternative, staying where she was despised, was unthinkable. On the 8th day, a violent storm caught her off guard. Lightning cracked across the sky as her mare spooked, sending the wagon veering off the muddy trail. The wheel caught in a deep rut, the axle snapped with a sickening crack, and Zara found herself stranded in the downpour, 5 miles from the nearest settlement according to the last signpost she had passed. Soaked to the bone and shivering, she gathered what she could carry and began to walk, leading her frightened mare through the rain. Night was falling fast, and with it, her hopes of finding shelter before dark. The lights of a ranch appeared like beacons in the stormy twilight, and Zara nearly wept with relief. It was a modest spread, nothing like the Grand Reynolds Ranch, but smoke curled from the chimney, promising warmth within. Her knock was answered by a man with a weathered face and kind eyes. Tall and broad-shouldered, with a dusting of sandy hair beneath his hat, he regarded her with surprise. "Miss, you're drenched through," he said, ushering her inside without hesitation. "Come in before you catch your death." "Thank you," Zara managed, her teeth chattering. "My wagon." The axle broke a few miles back. "I'm Garrett Dawson," he introduced himself, taking her sodden coat. "This is my ranch," Dawson's claim, not much to look at, but it's home. Before she could respond, a chorus of young voices called from another room. "Pa, Pa, who's at the door?" 3 children appeared, a boy of about 12 with serious eyes, a girl who couldn't be more than 9 with braided blonde hair, and a small boy of perhaps 5 clutching a carved wooden horse. "Children, we have a guest," Garrett explained. "This is Miss Zara," she supplied, suddenly conscious of her bedraggled appearance. "Zara, just Zara." The children stared with undisguised curiosity until Garrett gently nudged them. "Where are your manners? This is Samuel, Emma, and little Jack." Emma was the first to step forward. "Are you lost, madam?" Zara's throat tightened. "A bit, yes. My wagon broke down in the storm." "Like when Pa found me," Jack exclaimed, his eyes wide. Garrett cleared his throat. "That's enough, Jack. Miss Zara needs dry clothes and something warm to eat." As Emma led her to a small room to change into a borrowed dress, Zara caught glimpses of a home filled with love but lacking a woman's touch. Mismatched curtains hung at the windows. A basket of undarned socks sat by the hearth, and dinner appeared to be a simple stew that had been simmering too long. When she emerged in Emma's mother's old dress, a fact the girl shared without prompting, Garrett was setting an extra bowl at the table. "The children's mother?" Zara inquired softly as she helped him serve the stew. "Gone 5 years now," he replied simply. "Fever took her not long after Jack was born. I'm so sorry." "These 3 aren't actually mine by blood," he confessed, his voice lowered so the children couldn't hear as they washed up. "Found Samuel and Emma by the roadside after Indians raided their wagon train. Their parents didn't make it. Jack came later abandoned at the general store in Willow Creek when he was just a baby." Zara's heart swelled with understanding. "You took them all in," Garrett nodded. "Couldn't leave them, could I? Told myself it was temporary at first, but—" His eyes softened as he looked at the children. "They're mine now, papers and all." During dinner, Zara found herself answering the children's eager questions. Where was she from? Why was she traveling alone? Did she know how to make apple pie? The last question came from Jack, who informed her solemnly that Pa's pies always burned. "I do make a fine apple pie," Zara admitted, smiling at the boy's delight. "You'll stay until the storm passes," Garrett stated rather than asked as he cleared the dishes. "Tomorrow, I'll send word to town about your wagon. Joel at the livery can fix most anything with wheels." Grateful for his kindness, Zara insisted on helping with the cleanup. As she washed dishes, she noticed Samuel's torn shirt sleeve, Emma's unevenly cut hair, and the buttons missing from Jack's nightshirt when he came to say goodnight. These children needed mending, not just their clothes, but perhaps their hearts too. After the children were tucked in, Garrett joined her by the fire with 2 cups of coffee. "You're traveling alone," he observed. "That's dangerous for a woman in these parts." Zara stared into her cup. "I had no choice. There was nothing left for me in Cottonwood Springs." Something in her voice must have betrayed her pain, for Garrett didn't press. Instead, he spoke of his ranch, the cattle he was raising, the small apple orchard his late wife had planted, the challenges of being both mother and father to 3 spirited children. "They need more than I can give them," he admitted, the firelight casting shadows across his face. "Samuel's getting to an age where he needs guidance becoming a man. Emma, Lord help me, I don't know the first thing about raising a proper young lady. And Jack, he barely remembers having a mother at all." Zara's own losses seemed to echo his. "Children deserve all the love we can give them," she said softly. "Even when they aren't your own blood," Garrett agreed, his eyes meeting hers with unexpected warmth. The storm raged on for 3 days, and in that time, Zara fell into a rhythm with the Dawson household. She mended clothes by lamplight, taught Emma how to properly braid her hair, and helped Samuel with his reading. Jack followed her everywhere, his small hand slipping into hers whenever she moved from room to room. On the 3rd morning, she awoke to find him standing by her bed, wooden horse in hand. "Are you our mother now?" he asked, his question so innocent it nearly broke her heart. "Jack," Garrett's stern voice came from the doorway, "what did I tell you about bothering Miss Zara?" "It's all right," Zara assured him, sitting up and drawing Jack onto the bed beside her. "I'm not your mother, Jack, but I can be your friend." The boy's face fell. "But you cook like a mother, and you fixed my shirt like a mother, and you tell stories like Samuel says our mother did." Garrett's expression softened as he watched them. "I'm sorry," he said to Zara later as they worked side by side in the garden, clearing debris from the storm. "It's been just us for so long, the children, they get attached quickly. There's no need to apologize, they're wonderful children." She paused, then added hesitantly, "They deserve a mother." "They do," he agreed, his gaze lingering on her face a moment too long before returning to his work. When the skies finally cleared, Joel from the livery arrived with Zara's repaired wagon. Her heart sank at the sight of it, a reminder that she had to move on, continue her journey to somewhere, anywhere that would accept her. "Where will you go now?" Garrett asked as she packed her belongings. Zara hesitated. I'm not sure, I thought perhaps California. I've heard women can make their own way there, he nodded, his disappointment poorly concealed. The children will miss you, and I them. She swallowed hard. And you as well, Mr. Dawson. Garrett, he corrected, then suddenly straightened. Miss Zara, I have a proposition for you. It's not conventional, but please hear me out. She waited, heart racing at his serious tone. Stay, he said simply. Not as a guest, but as the children's governess. I can offer room and board and a small wage. They need someone like you, someone who cares, and I. He hesitated, color rising in his tan cheeks. I could use the help. It wasn't a declaration of love, nor even an offer of courtship, but it was a chance to belong somewhere, to be needed. Zara thought of little Jack's question, "Are you our mother now?" and found herself nodding. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll stay." The news delighted the children. Emma immediately showed Zara to a small room off the kitchen that had been used for storage. Together they cleaned it, hung fresh curtains, and made it hers. Samuel helped carry her trunk, while Jack presented her with a bouquet of wildflowers. "Now you won't leave," he declared confidently. Life settled into a new pattern at Dawson's claim. Zara rose early to prepare breakfast, taught the children their letters and numbers, and slowly brought order to the chaotic household. Garrett, for his part, seemed to stand a little taller, to smile more readily. The ranch prospered under their combined efforts. As summer bloomed, so too did the tentative friendship between Zara and Garrett. Their hands would brush when passing the salt at dinner. Their eyes would meet across the room when one of the children said something amusing. In the evenings, after the children were asleep, they would sit on the porch and talk of everything and nothing. Zara found herself sharing the truth of her past one such evening. "My husband's family cast me out," she confessed, the words still bitter on her tongue. 5 years of marriage and no child to show for it. They decided I was barren, unworthy of the Reynolds name. Garrett's jaw tightened. "Your husband allowed this." Thomas was a good man in many ways, but weak. His mother ruled the family, and in the end he chose them over me. She twisted her hands in her lap. "Perhaps they were right. Perhaps I am broken somehow." "You're not broken," Garrett said firmly, taking her hand in his. "Some things aren't meant to be, but that doesn't lessen your worth." Their first kiss came unexpectedly, on a warm evening when the children had gone to bed early, exhausted from a day of swimming in the creek. Garrett had been telling her about his plans to expand the apple orchard, and something in the way he described the future a future that seemed to include her made Zara reach for his hand. His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and calloused, and when he looked at her, the question in his eyes was unmistakable. Zara answered by leaning forward, her heart pounding as their lips met in a gentle kiss that deepened into something more profound. "I never expected to find someone like you," he murmured against her hair later as they sat wrapped in each other's arms, watching the stars emerge. "Nor I you," she replied honestly. "I came here with nothing, Garrett, no hope, no future." "You came with everything I needed," he corrected her. "Kindness, patience, love for children who aren't yours by blood." The word love hung between them, unaddressed but felt. Zara allowed herself to hope again, a dangerous feeling for a woman who had lost so much. Their courtship unfolded slowly, respectfully, under the watchful eyes of 3 children who seemed to approve wholeheartedly of the development. Samuel began asking Garrett man-to-man questions about courting. Emma took to calling Zara Miss Mother when she thought no one else could hear. Jack simply beamed and told anyone who would listen that Pa is sweet on Miss Zara. In town, however, the reception was cooler. Whispers followed Zara as she shopped for supplies with Emma. "That's her, the barren woman from Cottonwood Springs. Poor Dawson doesn't know what he's getting himself into. Those orphans deserve a real mother, not some cast-off who couldn't give her first husband children." Zara held her head high, but the words cut deep. When a letter arrived from her former sister-in-law, warning that Thomas was considering contesting their divorce on grounds that would shame Zara publicly, she nearly broke. "They want to claim abandonment," she told Garrett that night, after reading the letter. As if I left of my own accord when they drove me out with their cruelty. Garrett's face darkened with anger. Let them come. I'll stand by you, Zara. We all will. True to his word, when Thomas Reynolds himself rode into town a week later, Garrett met him at the general store, the children at his side, Zara standing proudly with them. So it's true, Thomas said, eyeing her with a mixture of regret and embarrassment. You've taken up with a rancher and his collection of strays. Before Zara could respond, Jack tugged at her skirt. Is that the man who was mean to you, mother? The word mother fell so naturally from the child's lips that Zara felt tears spring to her eyes. She knelt down, meeting Jack's worried gaze. Yes, but it's all right now. I have you three. Thomas blanched at the exchange, especially when Samuel stepped protectively in front of Zara and Emma took her hand. I came to deliver these, Thomas said stiffly, holding out the final divorce papers. Mother insisted I see to it personally. She wanted to be sure you weren't causing problems. The only problem, Garrett interjected, his voice level but firm, was how your family treated a good woman. Zara has built a new life here, Mr. Reynolds, a better one. Thomas's gaze shifted between them, noting their closeness, the way the children clustered around Zara like chicks around a hen. I see that, he said finally, his tone softer. For what it's worth, I am sorry, Zara. I should have stood up to Mother. Yes, she agreed, finding strength in Garrett's steady presence beside her. You should have. But if you hadn't failed me, I wouldn't have found my way here to a family that values me for who I am, not what I can or cannot give them. After Thomas departed, Garrett pulled her close on the ride home. You called them my family, he observed. They are, she replied simply. If you'll have me. That night, after the children were asleep, Garrett asked Zara to walk with him to the apple orchard. The trees were heavy with fruit, the air sweet with their scent, and in the center of the grove, he had laid out a blanket beneath the stars. I've been thinking about what you said today, he began, taking her hands in his. About family, about belonging, Zara's heart quickened. And I think it's time to make it official. He reached into his pocket and produced a small ring, simple but beautiful. This was my mother's. I've been carrying it, waiting for the right moment. He knelt before her, the moonlight casting shadows across his earnest face. Zara, I know we haven't known each other long by most standards, but I know my heart. I love you, your strength, your kindness, the way you've brought light back into our home. The children love you too. Will you marry me, be their mother in truth as well as in their hearts? Tears spilled down Zara's cheeks as she nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. When she found her voice, it was strong and clear. Yes, Garrett. Yes to you, yes to the children, yes to this life we've built. The ring slid onto her finger, a perfect fit, as if it had been waiting for her all along. Their wedding was a simple affair, held in the parlor of Dawson's claim with only the children, the preacher, and a few close neighbors as witnesses. Emma served as Zara's maid of honor, wearing a dress Zara had made specially for the occasion. Samuel stood tall beside Garrett, his face solemn with the responsibility of best man. Jack carried the rings on a small pillow, his steps careful and deliberate. Do you, Garrett Dawson, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? The preacher asked. I do, Garrett replied, his voice steady and sure. And do you, Zara, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I do, she answered, feeling the weight of her past fall away as she looked into Garrett's eyes. Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. As Garrett's lips met hers, sealing their vows, Zara heard Jack's delighted whisper to Emma. See. I told you she was our mother now. The first year of marriage brought challenges and joys in equal measure. The ranch expanded, with new cattle and a larger vegetable garden. Zara turned the front parlor into a schoolroom for the children during the winter months, and began taking in mending and dressmaking from neighbors to contribute to the family income. Their first Christmas as a family, Garrett surprised Zara with a proper sewing machine ordered all the way from St. Louis. She surprised him with news that left him momentarily speechless against all odds, against the cruel verdict of her former in-laws. She was with child. "Are you certain?" he asked, his voice hoarse with emotion as they stood alone in their bedroom, the sounds of the children playing with their new toys drifting up from downstairs. Zara nodded, her hands resting protectively over her still flat stomach. "The doctor in town confirmed it yesterday. I wanted to be sure before I told you." Garrett gathered her into his arms, his embrace gentle as if she might break. "A miracle," he whispered against her hair. "Our miracle." When they shared the news with the children the next morning, their reactions were a study in contrasts. Samuel, now 13 and increasingly aware of adult concerns, asked practical questions about where the baby would sleep. Emma clapped her hands in delight and immediately began suggesting names. Jack, however, grew quiet. "Jack." Zara knelt beside him later, finding him alone in his room. "Are you all right, sweetheart? Will you still be my mother when you have a real baby?" he asked, his lower lip trembling. Zara's heart clenched at his fear. "Oh, Jack, you are my real child, all of you are. This baby won't change that. A mother's heart grows with each child, it doesn't divide." Jack considered this, his small face serious. "Promise." "I promise," she vowed, drawing him into her arms. "You will always be my first little boy, the one who called me mother before I even knew that's who I was meant to be." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, with Garrett hovering protectively and the children taking turns feeling the baby kick as Zara's belly grew round. In late August, with the apple orchard heavy with fruit once again, Zara went into labor. The midwife was summoned and Garrett paced the porch while the children huddled together in the parlor, worry etched on their young faces. Hours passed, the sun set, and still they waited. When the first cry pierced the night, Garrett froze mid-step. The midwife appeared at the door moments later, her face wreathed in smiles. "A daughter, Mr. Dawson, strong and healthy just like her mother." Garrett rushed to Zara's side, finding her tired but radiant, a tiny bundle cradled in her arms. "She's perfect," he breathed, touching the downy head with reverent fingers. "Grace," Zara said softly. "I'd like to call her Grace for all the grace that brought us together." "Grace Dawson," Garrett agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "It's beautiful." The sound of small footsteps made them look up. The three children stood in the doorway, their eyes wide with wonder. "Come meet your sister," Zara invited, and they approached the bed cautiously. Samuel hung back, suddenly shy. Emma leaned in, cooing at the baby's tiny features. But it was Jack who climbed onto the bed and pressed a gentle kiss to the newborn's forehead. "Hello, Grace," he whispered. "I'm your big brother Jack. I'll teach you everything." In that moment, as Garrett sat beside her on the bed, his arm around her shoulders with 4 children, yes, 4, for they were all hers now surrounding her, Zara felt the final pieces of her heart mend. She had been cast out for being childless, branded as less than a woman because she couldn't conceive. Now she was mother to 4 beautiful souls, beloved wife to a man who saw her true worth, mistress of a home filled with love and laughter. As if sensing her thoughts, Garrett leaned down to kiss her temple. "Happy," he murmured. "Complete," she corrected, smiling up at him. "Finally complete." 2 years later, the Dawson family gathered for a portrait in town. Garrett standing proud with Samuel, now apprenticing with the blacksmith. Zara seated with Grace on her lap, and another baby bump just beginning to show. Emma blooming into a young lady, and Jack, still her shadow, standing at her side with his hand on her shoulder. As the photographer prepared his equipment, Jack leaned close to whisper in Zara's ear, "Remember when I asked if you were our mother?" "I do," she smiled, squeezing his hand. "I knew even then," he said with the simple wisdom of a child. "I knew you belonged with us." Zara looked around at her family, not the one she had expected, not the one society had told her she must have to be whole, but the one that had found her when she was lost and loved her when she thought herself unlovable. "You were right," she told Jack, her heart full to bursting. "I just needed to find my way home."